Yeah.
Good morning. I'm Commissioner Christian Leinbach, and I want to call the Berks County Operations Meeting to order for Tuesday, May the 14th. We are broadcasting live via Microsoft Teams live event. At this time, I want to recognize my executive assistant, Anne Marie Grill, to read the public comment policy.
Thank you, Commissioner Leinbach. Public comment will be accepted in person and through the Q&A function. Please include your first name, last name, and municipality for all comments. Any comments without name and municipality will not be considered. Each citizen can submit one comment. Comment length is dictated by limitations of the platform being used, Teams Q&A. In-person comments will be accepted first, followed by comments submitted virtually. The meeting comment period is limited to a total of 30 minutes, including both in-person and virtual comments. This time period may be extended at the county's discretion. Please be concise. Comments that are germane to county business will be read during the meeting and should not be considered to be interactive dialogue. The county shall be the final arbiter of whether a comment is germane and should be read. Any response to public comment will be done at the county's discretion.
Thank you very much, Anne Marie. Are there any additions or corrections for the March 26th meeting minutes? Hearing none, the minutes will stand approved as presented. We have no public comment on agenda items in person. Is there any public comment on agenda items online? No. Very good. We have two items on the agenda today. The first one we'll hear about is an update on the juvenile detention facility. And that will be led or introduced to us by our Director of Facilities, Rex Levengood. And then after that, we will have a second discussion and presentation. And this is a request from Berks Nature to amend and restate with addition of land, and they'll go into details. And we have Larry Lloyd here, who is the senior ecologist for Berks Nature, and also Andrew Fetterman, who's vice president for land at Berks Nature. So those are the two topics on the agenda today. And we're going to go ahead and begin with Rex Levengood and the Juvenile Detention Facility project.
Good morning, Commissioners, Board. On behalf of the COO team and facilities, we'd like to introduce CGL Companies and USA Architects to give a presentation on the services they have to offer to reactivate the Youth Detention Center. USA Architects designed the YDC we have today, and along with CGL have extensive experience in establishing juvenile justice facilities. Having the experience and knowledge of constructing our existing YDC gives them a head start, if you will, to expeditiously reestablish and license our YDC in accordance with current standards and conditions associated with Title 55 Pennsylvania Code Chapter 3800 regulations to operate a youth detention center. The purpose of the Pennsylvania Chapter Title Code is to protect the health, safety, and well-being of children in all aspects of an operation in a juvenile justice facility. The presentation today is explain and give understanding to the board what CGL and USA Architects have to offer for consideration in inquiring their services to reactivate the YDC. I give the floor to CGL and USA Architects and for their introductions and presentation.
Well, thank you. We're very happy to be here today. I'm Rick Davidson, Senior Vice President with CGL, Director of our Owner Representation Group, which is our consulting side of our business. We're very happy to have Paul Schwartz here today with US Architects. As Rex said, they were the architects for the original facility back when it was originally built. We've done multiple projects with USA Architects over the years with juvenile projects. So we have an ongoing relationship that goes back a number of years as well. So we have an agenda today. We want to really introduce ourselves. We want to make sure you understand who our firms are and talk about our juvenile experience a bit, but also our project approach, the timeline, and what we expect to develop here in the very near future. So we want to review all of those with you today. I have with me, as I said, Paul Schwartz, who will represent the architectural and engineering side of getting the building up to speed. And Chloe Jaco she'll talk about her credentials in a moment. Chloe will be the project director overall for the project moving forward, and your day-to-day personal contact as we go into the project. Our firm, we've been in business for 50 years, CGL has. We have a long relationship with Berks County going back to 2018. We developed the Criminal Justice Master Plan beginning in that year. We've also have done staffing and some maintenance consulting for the county overall, and we are the correctional facilities owner representation group that have develop the programming and the needs assessments for that project whenever that actually comes about as well. So we've had an ongoing relationship going back 2018. I'm going to let Paul talk about his firm in just a second, but I'm going to skip to a little bit overview of CGL and our justice experience. Oh, it is sensitive. There you go. So on our team, I'll be the overall designer working with Paul moving forward. I'm an architect myself. I have developed a number of projects like this. Chloe will be the project director. Brett Furfer, who's also worked with the county over this time period, will be helping Paul and Chloe develop the overall program. And then we also have on our team Dr. Mary Livers, who is part of our CGL group. She is has been a former director of a juvenile justice as a secretary herself, but brings about 40 years of very high level expertise in helping the team look at what is necessary from new programmatic requirements that'll be necessary for the building. We've done over 173 juvenile projects in our overall history, and have done over 500 overall justice projects. And we've pretty much done those from in all 50 states. Paul, I'll let you go, and I just advanced it.
Good morning, everybody. It's interesting. I started the practice 40 years ago in 1985, and actually have spent a lot of time here in Reading when I was involved with the original major renovation to the existing jail, and then obviously as a result of that, got involved with the juvenile justice facility here. So this is kind of like homecoming. Coming back to this building is kind of exciting this morning. It's an hour and a half drive for myself. But as Rick just mentioned, I started the practice in 1985. We're located in Philadelphia and in Easton, so we're very close in proximity. And together, the two of us have worked on a number of projects. We did a 2,000-bed adult correctional facility out in State College, Rockview. And then we're currently working on a really cool project projects for the state of New Jersey. We're designing and going to construct 3 new juvenile justice facilities in the state of New Jersey, north, south, and central. Again, my experience with our firm's experience, we did Northampton County's facility, juvenile justice facility in downtown Easton. And we're currently involved with a regional facility, adult facility down in Salem County for Cumberland, Gloucester, and Salem. So we're expanding that. So there's a tri-county agreement working for a specific commission. So something that is kind of exciting. I know there are trends for more of these regional facilities that are ongoing. So again, it's like the experience is there. We enjoy working with each other, and I'm going to pass it on to Chloe.
Thanks, Paul.
Yep.
So, just reiterating, we've certainly been keeping up with what's been going in the media and the press, understand that kind of the crisis that's going on in the state of Pennsylvania, and especially with Berks County and surrounding counties, actually just the availability of finding beds and places to house youth is definitely a challenge. So we certainly understand that, and we've been working with Berks since 2018. We understand a lot about the county, and we really are here to kind of help and take this to the next level and come up with a solution. So we're excited to be here. Really appreciate that. We have a scope, and there's going to be some tasks shown later, but overall, in an approach like this, you always want to start off with some kind of high level of visioning and thinking about what you're trying to accomplish with your system. That's obviously how we would start this project, just like we have with any other project we've done with the county. So we bring in our operations and our planning experts to kind of work with you and your leadership about what you're envisioning, what you're trying to accomplish, how we want the operations and the staffing and the facility to support everything that we're doing. And there's a lot of interesting trends right now, as you know, in this area. It's been kind of a conflicted thing. You want to be open and therapeutic, but also secure and be able to provide the necessary separations and environment you need. Having 2 youth in my command, I understand the challenges of doing this. And so this is kind of an exciting time to really think about that and how we can take this facility and create the kind of environment you want to in the structure. So it's pretty exciting. So we'll bring in a multidisciplinary team, obviously at the beginning with plannings and operations experts to define all this with you, and then be working obviously with our design team to kind of see how to realize that vision in the facility. And I'm slowly advancing. So that was just an illustration, but here I'm going to let Paul talk a minute since he was so involved in the thought process that went to this initial facility. Just some interesting insights from him about how things have changed.
See if I can, it won't, can I get on the screen so I can point? I can just go up to the screen as well. Yeah, there is. It just won't go on to the one I'm not sitting in. I'll go up actually, if you don't mind. So it's interesting. Going back to I think it was 1995. The director, the former head of juvenile justice was very interested in a very disciplined scenario for
Like being on Broadway.
Oh yeah, this is great.
That's awesome.
So is it really interesting? This gentleman who ran the facility was very much interested in discipline. So, as architects and as designers, we look at, okay, marrying the thoughts and the design concepts with a facility. So in this case, as you can see, this is the long corridor. The control center was in the middle with the idea that he would essentially want to march his residents down that corridor and then direct them into various programs. Now, in today's world, with the whole, it's a different world in terms of juvenile justice. So now we have to think about how we can re-envision your current facility to allow for some of the new things that are going on. So even to the point where initially he wanted the 30 residents in detention to be all together. And I kind of convinced him to maybe develop it like smaller groups. So we developed 2 smaller groups of 15 that each had their sort of living space. And then there was a sort of much more formal living area that he could put all the 30 together. So again, more regimented back then. And as we developed the program later, we're trying to create a little more flexibility and a more normative environment. Again, this is the overall facility. Let me go back real quick. I can just do a quick overview. So if you remember, the original building was essentially this area here. This was the vehicle sally port back in this area here, the receiving area. That was the exterior of the yard. And then that was 1995. And then the subsequent addition was 2003, was a brand new gym. And then we've got the addition of about another 24 beds in the addition at the upper level. And then down below was the area for education and other areas. Now, the interesting thing, and I don't know whether you're planning on bringing shelter back into the building. The nice thing is in the current
That is the plan eventually.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the nice things, and again, this is a little small, but the lower level here was dedicated to shelter at the lower level. And then you had some activity areas, classrooms, you've had a little bit of indoor recreation. And then as you go upstairs, you could see the 2 areas, the 2 15-bed units here with a sort of an activity space, central activity space, as I just described, along with that corridor that was sort of marching the residents back and forth. And then we had this sort of dining indoor rec space, kitchen area, and classrooms. It was always thought back in 1995 that eventually they would like to build a new indoor rec space to support the facility. And in fact, that's what happened in later phases, so that that indoor rec space could become, the dining area could be dedicated strictly for indoor rec. So depending on the number of people or residents who might come here, this would very easily continue to support 30 single bed rooms. So you can support on the upper level 30 beds, and so the thought is maybe during the initial analysis is that the multi-purpose room may become part of this and bring that back to life as well as the first phase. And then down the road, there are additional 2 pods of 12 each. Again, if in fact it were to go beyond the 30 beds. And then the lower level was the education. So with the bones are there, obviously the systems are older. They probably will need to be replaced, but essentially the building works. It would be nice to perhaps then with Mary and Chloe to figure out how do we now sort of reinvent this or reinvigorate this building so it brings us up to 2024 sort of juvenile standards. So I'm really excited to work with Mary and with Chloe on that.
Sure if that's stable.
Oh, yeah.
No, and I can talk about
ahead.
that. So if you go back part of CGL's work in 2018, we did look at the condition at the time of that facility and updated facility condition assessment that had been previously prepared. So we definitely have some knowledge about the state of the building and the systems. And of course, now you think about that, that's been 5 to 6 years. And plus we know there's been another kind of incident in the building, but all of that would have to be refreshed and updated to give us a handle on it. But we have a lot of good base of information. In advance?
Sorry.
No, here. I'm holding the microphone, so
Okay,
he has to
okay.
advance. Thank
Got
you. This is just kind of summarizing the scope of work that we had prepared, knowing this is an emergency situation. Called it emergency planning, kind of the first 45 days, and that truly is the exploration, just the condition of the building, where is that at, getting that updated. Also talking about the visioning and working with stakeholders to discuss what we're trying to accomplish, the feeling we're trying to create, the programs that we want to provide, all those parts, and really coming up with an operational plan for the county for this facility, and then translating that into the spaces that were required, the staffing that's required, all of those components, so you kind of have a full picture of what it's going to take to operate it, and then coming up with a new concept and obviously helping from that design, the cost estimate to really help informed so the county can look at that and make decisions. What do you want to do kind of for the next steps, which would be the implementation services. So based upon that critical decision, then of course, coming up with a plan to implement those improvements and changes and kind of giving you all the architectural engineering and planning support that you need to make that a reality. And plus whatever transition and activation services you may need with your new director and staff to get the facility programs, policies, procedures in place to have it up and running. So then the big nutshell, that was the scope of work that was provided, with the first 45 days being critical and then the rest of the schedule being determined after that. And so pretty much this is what our team can do. We're here to help you. We understand juvenile facilities. We're very familiar with Berks County. We do offer all of those different levels of services from operations through design. And, we definitely understand that this is an emergency situation. You need to come up with some really good information to make some really good value decisions. So with that, we'll open up to any questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. You are obviously correct. We have a fairly long history with CGL. For me, it made it an easy decision to bring in CGL. I haven't been here long enough, Paul, to have worked with USA Architects in the past, but it certainly makes a lot of sense to have the same firm in here helping us rehabilitate the facility for virtually the same purpose. Additionally, you alluded to regional facilities. It is the intent for this to be a regional facility. We are in discussions with Lehigh County and Dauphin County and looking for a partnership, not just are you interested in utilizing the facility. I think you're going to see that more and more in a number of these more challenging areas. And I think it makes a whole lot of sense. So very informative presentation and looking forward to the next steps. Colleagues, any comments?
Yeah, so, excuse me. Thank you for the information. Very interesting. Been to the building, actually just through it about a week or two ago. Something that's important for me and I want to keep in mind is right now, it previously was part detention and part shelter. Right now, we're looking at starting the shelter at another building with possibly then moving the shelter and the detention all together in that building. I guess one of my concerns is the shelter room right now there's only space for 19 kids. So I'd like to see, when we're looking at all of this, is there any way that can be addressed to be able to have more shelter kids the way it's being divided up there? So just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, there is, that's the expansion he went over, right?
Yeah.
The potential.
There is an opportunity. Again, one of the things.
Hold on.
Great thought.
You can't go without your microphone.
Yeah.
Here, sorry about that. I'm usually so loud, I don't need one of these, but that's how I got it. So yes, so the first level below is that shelter area.
Mhm.
There is the ability to potentially expand that, depending again on your regional effort. We could potentially maybe even begin to look at some expanding into the lower level of the addition. So there would be some adjacencies there that could work, whether or not it's an expansion of an addition or just working within the existing, which I think we've got a lot of square footage to work with. I think that could easily work. And again, keeping them away from the detention kids.
Yeah, something that's also important for me is to work within what we have. I don't, as of now, I don't think I'd want to put on any additions. I think we have enough space there, so I'd like to work within what we have.
And again, I think based on what I know today, there's plenty of square footage, existing square
Mhm.
footage, so we don't have to do what you said here.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If I may, commissioners, just so everyone's aware, we did interview 2 other firms with our facilities and operations team, and we settled on CGL and USA Architects for their wealth and knowledge and experience of the existing building. How better to bring in someone who was there during the initial construction phase. And Commissioner Linebaugh, you point out about Lehigh and the potential of Dauphin and Lehigh. We actually invited representatives of both counties to be on the call this morning, just so they get a better flavor of the way this could potentially be moving forward. What we're looking at right now is basically reviewing with our county solicitor, Christine Sadler, and our purchasing director, Kelly Lawback, the component service agreement 1.0, the emergency planning services for juvenile facility reactivation. I think that's something we're looking at least to get direction to move forward and nail that down and then bring to a subsequent commissioners meeting for approval. And then we'll start to work on component service agreement 1.1, which is a little bit further down the road, but that gets to be more intense and involved from a financial standpoint. This is kind of the emergency planning, and then moving into the other phase. We really want to spend more time in the future, if and when this is approved, to start working on the next. We're not proposing direction on both today, just the first one. That way we can get this kicked off and we can see the service we get from CGL and USA Architect and feel comfortable with them, and then move into the next phase if the board's agreeable to do that.
Earlier this year, we clearly declared public emergency as it relates to the youth detention center. That's not something we take lightly, other than weather-related public emergencies. I believe, Christine, this is only the second time we've done a public emergency. We did one for COVID, and this is one that is specific to a particular project, but also a particular area of youth detention. And you noted correctly, I would argue it's a crisis nationwide. But the Commonwealth and our County Commissioners Association has identified it as one of our top priorities for 2024. I think we need to move forward. if you can finalize the details for what are you calling
It's the-
1.0?
Yeah, one component services agreement for emergency planning services for juvenile facility reactivation. Again, it's the first phase.
How soon can we get that on an agenda? I mean, is it ready to go on an agenda?
It's roughed out. I did have conversation with Kelly this morning, Kelly Lawback this morning. We need to have additional conversation with Christine and her team. I'm not going to put a timeline on it. It's really going to be.
Sure. I'd
all
like to
squarely
move on it as soon as we can, reasonably. Thoughts?
And this is unofficial. This just gives
Sure.
us the green light to move forward with.
Yeah, I think what would be appropriate is a motion directing the COO to work with a solicitor to move forward in preparation of 1.0 and to get that on a commissioner's agenda as soon as is reasonably possible.
I will make that motion.
And I'll second it.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Thank you, commissioners. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next presenter is Larry Lloyd. I noted earlier, but he is a senior ecologist with Berks Nature. And then also Andrew Fetterman, VP of Land, also at Berks Nature. Larry, welcome.
Morning and nice to see you all.
Morning.
Okay, he's got it up here already for us. Berks Nature, before we get to the meat of what we're here for, the request, want to note, and this will come up a little bit further, Berks Nature celebrating our 50th year this year, since 1974, formerly known as Berks County Conservancy. We have 144 conservation easements with over 10,000 acres and have close to 9,000 acres in preserves. Okay, let's see. Okay, there we go. This, oops, sensitive. Okay, this is one page of 8 pages. I'm not going to bore you with it, but we just went through land trust accreditation and have been awarded national accreditation with commendation for our work. So that too is important. We are now a more stable organization and have been able to bring on Andrew and also 3 other folks in our land department. Now for today, we are here. We have 2 requests today with you that were mentioned by Commissioner Leinbach earlier. And request number 1 has to do with the amendment and restatement of the Gorin Federhoff easement from 2012 as part of the Pike Township Municipal Land Protection Program, which was for conservation easements for natural areas as opposed to those that meet the agricultural BCAL standards. So let's look at the map, and I believe there's a mouse here that maybe I can do it with.
You might want to pick up the microphone and walk over and point
Okay.
on the screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm pretty loud.
Yeah, well, they won't hear it
Oh, I
online.
see. Yeah. Okay, okay, thank you. Try to get out of the way so you can see it. Gorin Federhoff 2012 is that's 44 acres. This, as mentioned, was the Pike Township Municipal Land Protection Program. County of Berks holder, Pike Township beneficiary, and Berks Nature administrative agent, which means we do the daily and annual dealings with the landowners. Since just earlier this year, Third Place Holdings has purchased this property, the original easement, and parcel B, which is an additional 14 acres, and that is not in the conservation easement. So request 1 has to do with adding this acreage with no additional housing to remain to be in agricultural. I would say also innovative agriculture. Agroforestry is what they're working with right now. And that this would then the whole easement will cover the whole property. There'll be no subdivision and no additional housing. So let's go to, don't know if I need this. See, it is moving.
Yep.
Okay, this is let's look at a few maps to get a better feeling. Here's your BCalp easements in the Ole Valley with the high soils. And so, as you can notice in the Pike District, what we call the Ole Hills, the soils are not as productive, and therefore there's a dearth of agricultural easements. That's why the Municipal Land Protection Program was started. And so here is the Gore and Federhoff and Third Place Holdings. There's their location right there. So next up. Okay, these maps, maybe you've seen these before. We thank the Berks County Planning Commission for developing these maps to show that this is the future land use map that we are, RC and agriculture. So we are fitting in with the Berks County planning. I do want to point out that this parcel, this was a previous, dwelling where the folks, the Gorans, lived here while they refurbished this historic farmhouse. So this is already, there's no housing or people living there now, nor will there be, but it was sort of developed. That's why this is in future growth, even though there won't be any housing there in the future. Okay, this was also made, and again, thank you to the Berks County Planning Commission. This is to show the zoning, to show that we're not suggesting anything that isn't, that doesn't meet your county planning commission standards. So we're in RC for this is the Rockland Township line, so this is actually considered to be in Rockland Township. And there's the original conservation easement, which is zoned for agriculture in Pike Township. So we are meeting with the county standards. Now, another reason for this request is that Third Place Holdings, this is just a draft landscape plan. And so the plans for Third Place Holding, first of all, here is the housing that was developed by the rehabilitation of the housing and bringing it up to excellent standards right there of the homestead. And now on this map,
Okay.
the minimal, we're going to get to the minimal protection areas in a minute. So this map shows that there's interest for some temporary housing. Here's people that come there for working. There are also people that come there for events. And as a matter of fact, last week they had 25 people there helping them plant this Chinese chestnut orchard. As I mentioned, agroforestry. The rest will be native meadows and for pollinators and things like that. So we have a slight disconnect. Get to the next one. We have a slight disconnect to the minimal protection areas. So to refresh, minimal protection area means housing, septic systems, barns, that kind of thing. Standard protection is for agriculture, and highest protection is for forests or wetlands and riparian areas. So of note is the exceptional value Pine Creek West Branch that comes through the property right here. So this is 2012 again. So here is the homestead area with a lake. Oh, I'm sorry. That's in minimal protection. And then the other minimal protection was where the house was at that time is right here. So there was house and parking and also storage, as well as a septic system and a well in this area. So noting back on the last map, jump around a little bit. There's where the other house was. This is where the farm buildings are and the house and the main residence. This is not in a minimal protection area. So that's the other reason why we are here today, is because we want to adjust the minimal protection area with the addition of the new land. So there's again, the existing minimal protection areas. The reason we bring this up is for land trust standards to have an amendment and a conservation easement amendment and restatement, there cannot be no net loss of conservation value. So the approach that we've taken to accommodate a minimal protection area as the result of adding 14 acres, we took the percentage of the minimum protection as 7%. And now we are interested in adding these two minimal protection areas as the result of this property being added, which is asking for no permanent housing. This is for, I would say, workers or visitors. Yes, it's not permanent housing, and this is unknown at this point, but they want to reserve that. So the same percentage of the original easement, 7.5%, would be the percentage of the minimal protection in the new acreage, which gets us up to 57 acres. Was that clear enough?
So here's,
Okay, we can have a question at this point.
yeah. I think part of what you're describing is the need for additional language on the deed itself, a deed restrictive. And so you're adding this other parcel, the black hashed area, to the main. You're asking, there's three partners in this: the County of Berks, Berks Nature, and Pike Township. You're asking the county to make the Berks Nature what's the term here?
Yes, I did.
Co-holder of the conservation easement, but then ultimately also making a change to the recorded deed for the entire new parcel.
Yes. This is included in the new easement, which is what we're requesting. Minimal protection areas would be added in those at the same percentage that were in the original conservation easement. So we have no net loss of conservation value based on that percentage. And then there's also no housing being, no subdivision, no housing. And I also want to point out, we're adding 1.88 acres of highest protection area for this wetland and stream corridor. So we're, in our opinion, we're adding additional
value.
Yes, we're adding more protection to the easement, and we're not, we're following the same percentage in the original easement. Now, whoops, how did we go there?
You went to the beginning, not to the end.
Back to, I want to go back to Berks Nature again. I don't need to be up here anymore. I don't see any questions.
Make sure
Oh, the microphone, sorry. Oh, yeah. Wasn't using the microphone. I think it's turned off. Oh. Yeah, well, can you tell? I'm not-
There you
Not hard.
It's okay.
Present on land matters. So what I want to get to now is go back to our original slides with Berks Nature and our expanded capacity. And this has to do with our request to be the co-holder of the conservation easement. We have the accreditation standards now that we've accomplished. And it should also be noted that Pike Township is on record as being in favor of this, and the Berks Nature Board of Directors has passed a resolution in favor of this. By us assuming co-holder responsibilities, that also means that we would share in any potential liability or problems down the road. So it's I think it's a benefit in that regard for you folks, and also our relationships in the community for over 30 years there on the ground and with the landowners, I think puts this in a good position to be the co-holder. So to summarize, we recognize today that it's an informational session, but as was in the agenda, we are respectfully requesting the County of Berks approval as the holder for the amendment and restatement of the Gorin Third Place Conservation Easement with Berks Nature as a co-holder and administrative agent. We would still assume those daily responsibilities, subject to legal review by the respective solicitors and attorneys. And so do you have any?
So I think another important point to make for people that may not be as familiar, this is a great example. And in fact, you touched on it in your one slide where you show the Ole Valley. There's a lot of land, production agriculture land preserved in that area through the County Ag Land Preservation Board and the Pennsylvania Ag Land Preservation Program. The value of a Berks Nature is that you are able to preserve and protect properties that aren't fitting in that particular area, but yet can be high value, like you point out with the Pine Creek or wetlands area. The Ole Hills have some very significant parcels, but you have parcels throughout the county. It is somewhat unusual for the county to be involved the way we are, but the fact is we are. And so in this particular case, I think it makes complete sense. And I, for one, want to be on record supporting the great work that Berks Nature's done. I've been around long enough, not 50 years, although I'm over 50 years, but I have been involved with Berks Nature probably 20, 25 years, and have really seen it move from a education entity, very effective, but see the land protection really take off in a very important way. And that's not easy to do. Remember the efforts of Adopt an Acre. And it just is, it's not, it sounds easy, but it isn't. And Berks Nature's done a very good job. I support the request here. My colleagues can weigh in, but just wanted to note for the public to understand when we're talking preservation, 99% of the time it's ag land preservation, it's production agriculture. This is the kind of preservation and protection that overwhelmingly is done by the good work of Berks Nature.
Thank you very much.
Colleagues? Sure.
Mr. Chairman, I believe a motion is in order as advised by the solicitor. So I'm going to make a motion that this Board of Commissioners take initial action to direct county staff to move ahead with coordinating preparation of easement amendment documents in conjunction with Berks Nature and Pike Township.
I'll second that motion.
The motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Before we vote, Ashley Showers is here from planning. Do you have any input that you would like to provide? Very good. With that, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Thank you very much. We look forward to working with you on future projects in Berks County for our protection of our natural resources.
Thank
And
you.
thank you
Thank
for
you.
your work, Lloyd, and good to meet you, Andrew. That brings us to the end of our agenda. We have no public comment in person. Is there any public comment online? There's not.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Meeting stands adjourned.